Thank you, David, and welcome everyone. I'm gonna see there's a couple people coming on. Jennifer, you're trying to hook up to the audio. So I'll just give it a couple minutes, maybe a minute, because I like to start on time because, I appreciate those who are here on time. And today's webinar is preparing your business for the next disaster. Not a real fun topic to talk about, but something to definitely be aware of and try to be more proactive. I know we have been experiencing a number of disasters throughout the nation, and especially in California and up here in Shasta Cascade area with the fires. So some of this, you've gone through a disaster already, and even with COVID, we know how important being a little bit proactive and planning can be. And if we've learned anything from going through a disaster, we probably have some policies and plans in place to help move forward. So we're going to talk about how to really develop a disaster plan, what to think about, and then I have a boatload of resources for you, because when I was putting this webinar together, I was trying not to reinvent the wheel and talk about the ABCs of a specific plan, because there's so many great resources out there that you can upload to really help you with templates and things like that. So, all right, let's get going. Let's see, we've got a few more people have joined us. So you will be getting this recording emailed back to you along with my notes and my PowerPoint presentation. So understand that some of the notes and things that I'll be sharing are actually in my notes page. So you don't have to worry about trying to write down everything I'm going to say and share today. All of the links to the resources will work. And then I do have a little 3-minute YouTube piece on just kind of a high level of types of insurance you might want to consider for your business. It wasn't working so well prior to signing on today. So if we have time at the end, I'm going to try and play those for us, but you can always play them once you get the PowerPoint presentation back. The links will all work. Okay, today's webinar is being hosted by the Shasta Cascade Small Business Development Center. We are a nonprofit organization that's affiliated and funded partially through the Small Business Administration, as well as the California Governor's Office of Business. And then one of our sponsors has been the Better Bureau business for this particular webinar. So we are very excited to be able to present this at no cost. We, as the SBDC, as we call ourselves, provide confidential, no cost one-on-one advising, as well as a full array of training services to small businesses. We are located in Redding and service Shasta County and Trinity County. We have a full team. As you can see here, this is our team. And then we have access to almost 40 additional subject matter experts throughout Northern California. Now, if you are not located your business is not located in Shasta or Trinity County, there is an SBDC near you. And all you have to do is Google SBDC near me or near whatever county or city you're in, and it should pop right up. We do have at the end of the webinar a link to the website where you can actually put your zip code in and find it very easily. That's me right there, as you can see. This is a disclaimer regarding the information that we share in this webinar, and any supplementary materials provided to the attendees are intended for educational and informational purposes only, and does not constitute professional, financial, or legal advice. No registrant should act or fail to act on the basis of any material contained in this webinar without obtaining proper financial, legal, or other professional advice specific to to your situation. The Northern California Small Business Development Center and its host, the Humboldt State University Sponsored Programs Foundation, specifically disclaims any liability, loss, or risk, personal or otherwise, which is occurred as a consequence, directly or indirectly, of the use and application of any of this information presented in this webinar. So I have to read that and let you know that. And then I get to share about me. And that's my sidekick, Charlie. He's here in my office with me today. And I like to give him a little shout out because he often has some great little nuggets to share when I'm doing a webinar. And usually it's when the postman comes, but he had joined me in August of 2020 and is definitely my right-hand guy. I have about 25 years of working in economic development and downtown revitalization. I am a woman-owned consulting business, and I have been working with Northern California Small Business Development Centers for close to 20 years. Specialize in a lot of different areas, and I truly enjoy working with individuals, helping them start up their business, grow their business, talk about marketing, financial projections, capital needs, almost any area that a small business may need assistance in. And then, of course, today we're talking a little bit about planning for a disaster. So we're going to have an overview of business insurance. We're going to talk about the importance of financial preparation, tools and a support system, and then questions and feedback. Hopefully we have time for that because an hour goes by very quickly. So let's just kick it off. And this is probably a slide that we really don't need any explanation about, but you know, disasters come in all shapes and sizes. And in our own lifetime, I really never thought we would experience a health hazard or a health disaster such as COVID-19, but we did. We still are somewhat. And even my consulting business, which is really a very small operation, I definitely felt the impact. A lot of my contracts were with federal and state agencies. And of course, when everything shut down, those contracts were like gone. And then I needed to pivot. I did a lot of workshops in person, had to pivot immediately to working through Zoom or Microsoft Teams or any of those type of video conferencing platforms that are out there. And, you know, the thing about that COVID-19, it came very fast. Like any disaster, it comes on much faster than sometimes we're prepared for. So when we talk about disasters, we can talk about natural disasters like floods, fires, and earthquakes. And up in Northern California, of course, we've been going through with the drought and terrible fire seasons and devastation. And our hearts go out to all individuals who have either lost a home or a business in those disasters. Floods, we see floods. I know when Oroville Dam was having issues, there was some nervousness around the dam breaking and flooding, and then earthquakes. Being in California, I'm from Southern California, moved up to Northern California in 1970, but down in Southern California experienced a few of them. So then we move into the health hazards such as COVID-19. Sometimes disasters can be human-caused hazards, including accidents or acts of violence. A lot of, the rioting and those kind of things are human-caused hazards or disasters. And then technology-related power outages, cyber attacks, equipment failure. Of course, all of these have impact on our businesses, and we would want to never have to go through it, but knowing they're out there and that what is the impact on your business is really what we're going to talk about, how to, start thinking about that, putting together a plan, making sure you know where all your data is, what you would do in an evacuation or in a situation where we have hazards such as an acts of violence or even a cyber attack. Not a really happy subject to talk about, but something that I think we all need to be aware of. Okay, so what is the business owner's job when we think about emergency preparedness and putting together a disaster plan? What is our job as a business owner? First of all, okay, I have something in the chat. So I just wanted to see what it is. Oh, that was David. Thank you, David. He just wanted to remind everybody. I have to kind of look at that chat to make sure I'm not missing something, a question somebody might be asking. So really, your job is to take care of your employees' needs, right? And that's number one, is when we go into emergency preparedness, how can we evacuate them safely? Do we have contact information to let everyone know what's the status of the business? What's going on? Do we have a second location we're going to be operating at? Are we closed down? So really taking care of your employees' needs. Number two is communicate the impact. Who are we going to communicate? How are we going to get the word out about what's going on? How do I contact my bank? How do I contact my insurance agent? How do I communicate with my customers the change in hours? And with COVID-19, we quickly realized how important that was in terms of once we started to slowly open up, how people could get the products and services. Were we delivering products? Did we have curbside delivery? All of those type of pivoting ways we were starting to communicate with our customers. So then the next, your business owner's responsibility is really to, of course, address financial matters, insurance, disaster assistance, looking at resources that are available to us, with the type of disasters with any disaster, it's like almost immediate shutdown of your business. How do you address those financial needs? How do you keep your business going? Do you need a line of credit? Do you have to let your vendors know? All of those areas that is, impacting your financial bottom line. Restoring your operations. Once we get through the peak of the disaster, how do we get back up and operating? How do I bring my employees back? How do I restore my operations? How do I look at taking assessment of any equipment impact? Tenant improvements, if there was due to the fire or due to floods. I was talking to a client the other day, and it wasn't necessarily a disaster that impacted her business, but it was actually something with her building. And up in Northern California, a lot of rain last winter. She had a leaky roof. By the time she realized what the impact was, got to her business, it already had gone all over her point of sale equipment, and no longer was she able to take credit cards. All of that is a ripple effect. Now, could she have prepared for that natural disaster? Maybe she knew the roof was leaking, but she had no idea that the whole ceiling would fall in at that point. So, sometimes even with best planning and preparedness, when we're dealing with it, it's almost a situation that is just up, right there in front of us. And then organizing recovery. We have been getting really good at that since COVID-19, really reorganizing, especially if you're the type of business that has a bricks and mortar or has a storefront. Or even if you're a business that once upon a time where you went to, you were a vendor at trade shows, you're slowly coming back into that, you're slowly reconnecting with your customers, reconnecting with vendors that supplied you products. So the recovery, organizing that recovery, and how do you navigate? And a lot of times when we come out of the disaster, what we learn going through it and planning for it and actually changing some of our operations, we become a much more resilient business, a much stronger, resilient business. This is a great little infrastructure or infographic that I found that just kind of talks about emergency preparedness for the workplace. You know, no alerts or alarms in your workplace, inspecting your fire extinguisher, installing IWAS stations for if you have eye hazards, keeping safety data sheets. These are all things that we're going to talk about that you might want to need, you might need when you're thinking about emergency preparedness. And this was just something to look at to kind of maybe trigger some of those areas that you might want to think about in your business. So let's talk about an emergency preparedness checklist. Making a plan. Now, as a business advisor for the Shasta Cascade SBDC, a lot of times we're working on business plans. Business plans, of course, those plans that looking at your business in a future state and how am I going to grow it? Where am I headed? Who's my target market? What's my financial projection? So no different than when we want to prepare an emergency preparedness checklist. We're going to make that plan. We're going to think through, we're going to be planning ahead of time so that, gosh forbid, we ever have to go through a disaster or a natural disaster or a hazard, that we have some things planned out. We know where the emergency preparedness binder is. We know all of the items are in that binder that I can easily pull down and start to use as a resource for navigating the disaster as it's happening, before it's happening, during the actual disaster, and then even recovering from it. So number one is, and this is all information that I gleaned from a number of different resources when I was putting together this PowerPoint. So none of it is anything I dreamed up. I'm good at dreaming up things, but this is all hard, good, solid data that is from credible resources that have actually, are actually involved in preparing for a disaster. So first of all, know your region and the types of hazards or natural disasters that could impact your business. Now, this one was interesting to me because most of the time we're not really thinking too much if I'm in a floodplain, or am I near a earthquake fault, or how close am I to that, the dam, or am I in the way of a certain, type of threat? So the best place to think about the types of disasters are usually on the county's hazard analysis or mitigation plan. And County of Trinity actually has this. And I looked for it in Shasta County, couldn't quite find it, but you would go on your county website and you would look for the county's hazard analysis or mitigation plan. And the plan is typically found on their website and includes past threats and disasters in the area, as well as geological hazards related to weather patterns, wildfire concerns, proximity to flood plans, major airports, dams, and other companies with hazardous materials. So it's just going to kind of say, okay, if my business is like close to here, and maybe up in our rural communities, we know we may be in the path of the fire just because we have all the trees surrounding us or a lot of built up brush. But, really with some of the power outages and the wires and all those things, this is a really, area to look at to see if what's going on in my county. I don't know if I have any companies with hazard materials near me. I haven't even really thought about that. How could that impact me? So this is a good place to kind of maybe, if you're into wanting to know that, you would start here. Second, you want to start looking for hazards that are internal to your organization, your business, as well as external to your facility. So, the easiest way to do it is simply take a walk around your business and then through your immediate neighborhood or your, your commercial area. If you're located as a home-based business, you may want to walk around your property and walk around the roads. If you're located in a commercial district, you may want to take a walk around in a mile radius, and consider your business's physical location. And is there anything close to you that could be a possible hazard? Take some time and assess your facility's capacity to resist damage or impact if a disaster was to occur close to your business. So really kind of, just becoming aware of where your business is located, and are you buried way deep into the woods where, it's hard and there's not a lot of access. I know that's been a huge issue with a lot of our rural communities, especially with the fires, is really getting, our fire protection, getting access to the property. So you want to kind of think about that. You want to kind of look at that. What would be your escape route? What would be the way that you would get out of the path of an oncoming disaster? So take a walk around and just kind of get a feel for your physical location of your business. Now, if you're service-based and you have trucks, where are your trucks parked? Is there anything that could fall on them? I'm just making this up, but I'm just thinking for myself here in my own home office I have 2 offices, and today I am located in my Phoenix office. What is my location here, what might be relative to something that might impact my business? Well, first of all, it's whenever they're working on the internet, right? The Wi-Fi access. When I see the Cox truck pull in, and then I know my Wi-Fi is going to go down. And if I don't have Wi-Fi, my business is impacted. So that's, not a natural disaster. It's actually something that impacts my business. When we are in Arizona, we get monsoons and we have flash floods coming through the hood, and the dust and the big winds. I've seen trees fall down in our neighborhood. That definitely would be a hazard. And if something happened to my office, I would have to, think about where's my papers? How do I get my computer out of here? How do I keep my employees safe? So the next area that you want to think about as you start to put together your emergency preparedness checklist, and this is probably a place where you're going to want to, get a piece, not right now, but you're going to want to get, start thinking, okay, I'm going to physically start writing some things down for my emergency preparedness plan. And this is starting to make a list of your critical assets, or in other words, those items that if were taken away would cause disruption to your business. What do you absolutely need to access on a daily basis in order to stay in business? Your assets, broad term, it might be your physical assets that like buildings and equipment, or it could be important data or key employees. But it's important to make sure that they're truly critical, meaning that you simply cannot do without them, even for a short term. Majority of critical assets for a business fall into these 6 categories. People, that would be your employees, your manager, your office administrator, buildings or building, equipment. Now for me, my main equipment is my computer. And when I've had when I had my hard drive stop working, right, and your computer is down, it's definitely impacts your business. I almost immediately have to go buy a new one, right? So what equipment is critical to your business that you absolutely need it day in, day out? Data, what kind of data? Inventory, is there certain inventory? And then operations. So I have a client who's in Northern California. And with the fires coming, she had to evacuate not only her home, but also her business. So she had to, she had evacuated her home on several occasions, but never had to evacuate her business. It was in the commercial central core, and they started to evacuate them. So here she is with all this inventory. So she started to, systematically pack it up. As she was packing it up, she was writing on it, on the boxes, what it was. And then she, took her computer, took her financial backup disk. She had some equipment she needed, and then she had it all packed up. And where does she take it? Well, that was the next part of her plan, was she had a second location already identified where she could take all that inventory and equipment and important data and store it until the evacuation orders were lifted. So, again, the critical assets, she was starting to think about them as she was actually going through the evacuation process itself. Then second part of the identifying the critical assets is then how do you protect them and create and what's a solution? How, if they're that important to you, how do you protect them? And then what's a solution if you have to, in the midst of a disaster or a hazard, deal with that protection? So you want to think about, this is where you would create a chart. And the way that I've described it in my notes here is that you want to put the type of disaster or hazard down the left-hand side of your table. So you're going to put, fire, maybe COVID-19 or reoccurrence of the pandemic. If you're near a flood area, you might put flood, earthquake, power outage, whatever are those natural disasters and man-made or human. Cyber attack could be one. That's becoming much more relevant in today's technology world. I know we have a couple webinars on cyber protection or cyber security, and probably something you might want to consider taking one of the webinars or getting more information about that. So down the left-hand side, you're going to put the list of the hazards or potential hazards and disasters that might impact your business. And then across the top, you're going to want to include a column called critical assets. Okay, so your critical assets are those people, places, your people, your buildings, your equipment, and then list them. And in the second column, what's the impact of the disaster on that asset? So if you had to evacuate for a fire, what is the impact of that on people? And this over here, this risk assessment chart that I showed you, the source is from SBA. I have a link in my resource slides about all of the type of resources that SBA has online in terms of emergency preparedness. And this is kind of a risk. They use a scoring system. So if, like for me, people, well, I'm the one employee, so the risk is high for me. If there was a natural disaster, I am the business. So what happens, that risk is really high. I give it a 5. And what's my solution? Well, it would be for me to protect and get out of the way quite quickly, right? So I'm just saying, so you would look at maybe rating, what's the probability of the impact of that disaster on those areas, and then what is the solution? What are you going to think about how you prepare to move your inventory or address the impact on your operations? You can take some time to think through the types of disasters and impacts, and even pull in your team or your employees, or say, hey, I just want to sit down today. We're going to start thinking kind of why we're, not in the middle of a natural disaster or a hazard. What are some of the hazards you guys think we might ever face, and what would be the impact in these areas, and maybe pull from your team, because now you're creating the synergy and the discussion and bringing the awareness to your full your full business, especially if you have employees, especially if, like, my daughter up in Nevada County has a roofing business. She has 29 crew folks. I don't know if she has an emergency preparedness checklist. I don't know if she's talked to her team what to do if there is, an emergency. How would she contact all of them? But that she has a large staff. So the people are very important in her business. Then here is the next part of making a plan. This I pulled down from Shasta County Health and Human Service Agency. Build a kit. Now, some of this is for home or for your own, home preparedness. But again, this can also be thought of for your business. So you want to kind of think of, first of all, especially if you're in a larger building or in a more secluded, anywhere really, if for your business, what is your evacuation policy and procedures? During a disaster hazard, a disorganized evacuation can result in confusion, right? Injury and property damage. If you've developed an evacuation policy and communicated it with your employees, then you're better prepared for dealing with other aspects related to a disaster. So list specific evacuation procedures, including the routes and exits, and post these procedures where they are accessible to all your employees. Really key. Your policy should outline a clear chain of command and designate of the person in your business authorized to order an evacuation or shut down, as well as determine which employees will stay and shut down more critical operations during an evacuation. Now, with evacuations, and we're talking about a little bit more lead time, COVID-19, a health hazard, the pandemic, it came pretty fast. And, the state closed down and required a shelter in place across the entire state. Did we call our employees? Did we check in with them? How did they know you were closed? I mean, it was almost immediately. So with that said, if we think about what we had to do during that time and pretty much reactive, how would we address it more proactive this next time? Not that we ever want to have that happen again, but using that real life experience in helping prepare for other types of hazards or evacuations or disasters that we maybe have a little bit more lead time. It's always going to be a very stressful time when we're dealing with a disaster and really trying to navigate it through as the business owner. It is scary. It is scary for everyone. So as the business owner, you've just gone, again, what kind of policies do I have for the evacuation? Do I have all their contact list? And then create a system within your evacuation policy and procedure for supporting personnel following the evacuation, including how you account that all your employees are out and reported safe, plan to address transportation concerns and needs. Do they need to, help to getting back to their homes from a location where they're isolated if they were out in the field working? I substitute teach sometimes, and for all grades. And we are doing those fire drills, right? We have to get the kids up and out of the door. And it's interesting because through that process of dealing with an evacuation, we as substitutes, we as personnel have to take each year a training. It's a PowerPoint training that talks about the different levels of preparedness, whether it's a lockdown, whether it's a fire, whether it's a natural disaster. But then when we're on site, they always have in the book, in the binder, the sub binder, a full-on explanation of the procedures. And then, you know, I always sit there and read them. I try to find the board. Where is the red card or the green card to let everybody know when we're out in the field standing, or the lockdown, how to, you know, where we put all the kids. So, you know, thinking about that in that very elementary concept, transferring that to your business, and it's probably doesn't need to be as detailed, especially if you have a small staff, but just some of those kind of protocols. How do I train my staff? How do I educate what our, you know, communicate what our evacuation plan is, our drills? And then when we're there, where is that emergency preparedness binder? Where is that policy where I can grab it, or my manager can grab it, or anybody, maybe even it's just the office administrator is left there and everybody else is out in the field and she has to lock down the building for a reason. Where is that? So then you want to think about employee emergency contacts. Do you have all the information current on your employees? Do you know who their emergency contact is if something was to happen and you needed to contact them regarding the business status, where to report? You know, make sure that your personnel files are up to date and that you have all that information. And we have it in different forms, not just, you know, the cell phone. Is there a hard line where they can be reached? Do you have a hard line, or do you have a way that they could reach you if, you know, there is no cell service? What is their physical address? All of that information is key. And maybe you need 2 or 3 emergency contacts, so you start going down the line. That's the low-hanging fruit. That could be done like tomorrow. And then the next thing that's really key, and we don't really think about this until after the fact sometimes, is where's all the contact list and emergency resources, vendors and suppliers, key contacts, you know, customers, establish relationships with alternative or backup suppliers and vendors. So keep your key vendors and suppliers contact information. Insurance agent and bankers. Where's your, you know, do you have anymore? We have everything on our phones or on on our computers, right? But if there's no internet and we're in the middle of an evacuation and we don't have time to flip up our desktop or look in or roll through our phone contacts, sometimes paper is great. Again, that emergency preparedness physical binder, print off your Excel or your contact sheet and have these contacts in there, and make sure periodically once a year that they're current. Local and state law enforcement, fire department, emergency medical services, your local governmental officers, your local American Red Cross chapter, your telephone, water, gas, and electric companies, and then emergency repair and cleaning services. So this you could take some time to kind of create that kind of list of these key contacts that you're going to want to know. I would say too that we're going to add in there a list of you may have on your computer all of your customers in an email program. Is it backed up? Can you access it easily? Because once we go through the evacuation, we may post on Facebook or we may post on Google My Business that you're closed, but then wanting to reconnect with your customers and send out an email and let them know that you're safe. Right now, your business is going to be closed, temporarily closed, or you might have even gone to a second location. All of these are really key things to think about. Next thing in your binder, your emergency preparedness checklist, is the critical business functions. Identify those essential functions and the staff to carry out these functions. Which functions are necessary to fulfill legal and financial obligations? Which functions staff are necessary to maintain your cash flow? How long is your business going to be down and viable? How will you continue to perform these functions in a disaster situation? Consider establishing agreements and procedures with suppliers, vendors, and other businesses that are critical to your operation. Know your operations, be specific as possible when documenting procedures for workarounds or manual processes. Again, for my business, oh, well, do I need to like have business functions about how I, get on Zoom to do a webinar? Not so relative, but if you have a large operation um, and you need to shut down very key equipment, who is that manager that knows that can do that very quickly? And as important as get it up and going again. So again, just kind of maybe that's not as relevant to your business, but you may want to take some time to think about those functions. Who else besides you can sign on your bank account? Or do you have a second signature in case you're not able to get to the bank or able to authorize a transfer from your line of credit to your checking account to help cover payroll while you're in the midst of a disaster? Sometimes I think when I'm on vacation, what would happen to my business if I was like stuck over in a hurricane, or out there in the cruise boat and I can't get back to port? Yeah, I was on a cruise on January 2020, right before the COVID, and I was thinking, after everything sheltered down, I could have been on that cruise boat for months. What would have happened to my business? A lot would have happened. First of all, there'd been no cash flow. Second of all my clients who I had obligations with, I couldn't meet with. I couldn't have done my webinars, or I couldn't have reached out and paid my bills. So, that really was an eye-opener for me. Sometimes it's not in your physical location. It's you as the business owner. If you're gone on vacation, or you're somewhere not close to your business, and you are trying to take a vacation and unplug, but something happens, what would you do? Think about that as you're thinking about emergency preparedness. It might be even on your list as a natural disaster. Is if natural disaster is me, I'm on vacation and you can't get a hold of me. Wouldn't that be lovely? Anyways, and then this one, to me, vital records. I found this one, and I think about this quite a bit. Where are my vital records? And do I have the 3-2-1 backup rule? No, I don't. I didn't. Now I do. You should have 3 copies of your data, 3 copies of everything that is critical records, whether that's payroll, whether that's your personnel records, your bank records, your payroll records, your insurance records, your property, your lease agreement. We could just go down the list. And then each copy should be saved in 2 types of media, maybe one in the cloud and one physical. And you should keep 1 backup copy of your data in an off-site location. Well, I don't have that. I have everything here, and I know where I'd have to grab and go, but I don't have it at an offsite. So what does that look like? Is it an offsite in a secure iCloud? Is it a physical location that you would have it maybe at in a not a safe deposit box, or a vital record storage unit? So there's lots of different places to think that. And those could be also, anything that has related to your business that you would need to access in the case of an emergency, as well as in recovery. Critical equipment and machinery. Do you have, and this was where it's not so much how do I keep it operating, it's more about, do I have the lease agreements on them? Do I have separate parts or equipment stored at offsite locations? Do I have a list of the warranties? Are they all insured? It says to save and store photos, purchase invoices, sales receipts, user guides, and warranty information in a dry, safe, and accessible location. I know someone who got evacuated from her home. This is a home. But we could still transfer it related to you evacuating for your business. And she needed to report back to her insurance agent everything she lost. Well, she started to think about everything out in the yard, wheelbarrows and ladders and a cord of wood. And so, you know, a lot of people, after they've gone through a fire and had to evacuate and come back, and goodness sakes, let's hope never with a total loss, take pictures of everything. So same with your business, especially since often we don't get back to the place of our operations right away after a natural disaster. And if it was, you know, closed down, and you want to make sure that it's protected, you're not sure, you know, maybe, you know, even though law enforcement is always patrolling, sometimes when there's no action or it's during that time, unfortunately, maybe someone could break in and take something, or you didn't, you know, think it was going to, and nothing was going to get damaged, but the sprinklers went off. Yeah, that's always a good one, right? The fire is next door, or is 2 stores down, but the smoke makes your sprinklers go off, and then all of a sudden you have this damage. So again, we're talking preparedness, proactive, take pictures, put it in your binder, have your POS system, the model number, your lease agreement, how much it costs to, you know, you purchased, in somewhere safe, dry, and accessible. And then, of course, understand your IT needs and develop a protection system. Keep a backup copy of your computer's operating system, boot files, critical software operation manuals. Backup your computer files, maintain an up-to-date copy of your computer and internet login codes and passwords, create a list of all your computer equipment, hardware, software, all of that technology base that is so important to running our businesses now. And then keep an equipment inventory updated. A lot of businesses, if you're like, you know, really in your peak season, you're maybe purchasing new things, pieces of equipment, and you meant to add it to your inventory, but you never got around to it. So look at that inventory list each year and update it. This over here, this is a snapshot of American Red Cross Ready Rating, and this is a link in my resource slides for you that they offer training for companies and organizations, and it might be something of interest to your business if you're going to be needing that. Okay, so again, preparedness, ensure your business is financially resilient. Maybe you might need to start an emergency reserve fund. You might need to establish a line of credit or just a credit card to use in case of an emergency. Identify financial obligations and expenses that must be paid, and get adequate insurance and evaluate your policies regularly with your insurance agent or broker. Probably going through the pandemic, this is an area that really hit us all. A lot of us were not prepared to be shut down for months upon months, especially in the restaurant sector, the retail sector, the hospitality sector is still recovering. Businesses that depended a lot on vending at different trade shows, festivals, events, really impacted. My business was impacted. Like I said before, had a whole boatload of contracts ready to roll out in 2020. It was going to be the year. Smack, shoot, one day there, next day gone. So again, being prepared financially, kind of just thinking about it. How much would I need in reserve if I was to really have to be evacuated, business shut down? And we probably know more now than we've ever known before what that financial snapshot is. Identify a second location. Often with businesses, if you need to be physically evacuated, and it looks like it's going to be a while before you can get up and going, maybe you need to look at a second location that is out of the evacuation zone or the disaster zone or the hazard zone, so you can get up and going again pretty quickly. You know, subleasing someplace, sharing workspace area. Um, Identify a first aid team. Now we're getting into some early, let's hope we never have to have a first aid team. Approximately 10% of your workforce should be trained in first aid and CPR so that you can assist in times of disaster or emergencies when until help arrives. Budget for it. Prepare a safety equipment first aid kit, fire extinguishers, smoke detectors, shelter in place supplies, and make sure employees know how to access it. This over here is an emergency supply list. And this was really, I thought this was really interesting. This is more for maybe a at home, but it can be very relevant for your business too. So have that kit ready, the flashlight, some water, your emergency preparedness binder, and have that kit ready. And then integrate emergency preparedness into your daily operations. Know your plan yourself, educate, communicate with your employees, and then if needed, test the plan. Okay. I'm thinking the next slide is the insurance slide. Don't I have any questions at this point in all of that? Hazard. Oh, did I have it spelled wrong?
No, I had it spelled wrong.
Oh, okay. I thought I used spell check. For those out there who don't know me, I'm the worst speller in the world, and I can tell you every single time I do a webinar, I find my own spelling errors. So, okay, so different types of business insurance, all kinds out there. Property and liability, those are probably the two main ones that most businesses need to obtain. Property, if you are, operating out of a offsite, a building or a bricks and mortar or a storefront. If you're using for your own home-based business, you may, need additional property protection if you're having people come and go. Liability. I personally have basic business liability coverage that is usually required by my contracts for people that I'm contracting with. Workers' compensation if you have employees, auto insurance, business interruption, flood, which is very expensive, very hard to get. Malpractice if you're in needing that type of insurance, if you're in that type of industry. Life, key man or key person insurance, and then special endorsements. For myself, at one time, I was required to have professional errors and emissions, which basically most people who are moving dirt or that type of industry need it when you're like working with cities or counties and you're changing ordinances, which could have an impact. I only, advise and consult. So often I don't need that anymore. But, that type of insurance, errors and emissions insurance, you just don't go down and sign up for it. You have to report that you have, no bad judgments against you. They want to see your policies regarding certain things. You have to apply for it. This is the two YouTubes that are just really very simple 3-minute little snapshots of definitions of the type of insurance. I always say, first of all, if you are thinking about like my business, what kind of insurance would I need for my type of business? Your industry association may have recommendations for that. May say this is the typical type of insurance that you would need in this industry. And then you could go and talk to your agent. If they don't do commercial type of insurance for business, then they could recommend someone if they just do residential. Wow, I just need to have a longer time for this webinar, I'm telling you. So now I'm going to switch into all of the resources, and these are in order from federal, state to local. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security has ready.gov. It is fabulous. It has lots and lots of resources for you to look at. Toolkits and templates are available through this federal resource. And then, of course, FEMA. The Federal Emergency Management Agency, which is FEMA, coordinates the response to disasters in the United States. Again, great resources there for you. Disasterassistance.gov provides information on how you might get help from the federal government before, during, and after a disaster. And then, like I mentioned before, the Small Business Development, or excuse me, the Small Business Administration Disaster Assistance has some great resources. There, not only do they have, types of financial resources that you may be eligible for, they have lots of different type of templates and information to look at. And then, of course, America's Small Business Development Centers. There's lots of resources under this, the American SBDC. Protect Your Business. This is a resilience plan workbook, emergency procedures workbook, as well as templates, and even some webinars to assist you with drafting your emergency preparedness plan. American Red Cross Ready Rating. And then actually for those in the construction, and maybe not even so much in the construction, but OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. Everybody in our area working in government, we always throw around all these, OSHA and FEMA and SBDC. And I like to tell you in my webinars what those stand for, because it's very important. These, I thought this was really, really a great resource. Even if you're not, under OSHA and you don't need to worry about that, but they had a lot of great best practices to assist employers and workers about safety in the workplace. The CDC, of course, is continuing to provide us updates on COVID-19. NOSHA, which is the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, also has some great resources. Then the National Network, Information, Guidance, and Training on the American with Disabilities Emergency Preparedness. This has a selection of emergency preparedness and for people with disabilities. And so that's if you have employees or you have folks that you vend with or work with that have disabilities, you may want to look at this because their needs are just quite a bit different than needs maybe for folks without disabilities. Yeah, good old Internal Revenue Service, our IRS, our favorite April agency. It's coming around, right? They actually have some simple steps that can help, you taxpayers and businesses protect your financial and tax records in the case of a disaster. So check them out. And then they do an audio presentation about planning for a disaster, about continuing planning, insurance coverage, record keeping. So not only about collecting our taxes, but how to protect our financial records and things. Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety, IBHS. It's an independent, nonprofit scientific research and communication organization. And they have this amazing tool called OFB-EZ, Open for Business Easy. And it's a toolbox, toolkit that helps you with the steps on to keep functioning in the event, templates to help you create your emergency preparedness binder and checklist. So check that out. Really, really valuable resource. III is a source for insurance information and offers a wealth of data-driven research studies, white papers, videos, articles. That infographic was from there, and others to explain insurance and enhancing knowledge. So, a lot of these, you can just go on there and you can go down their website rabbit hole, but it'll give you kind of a high level of the insurance. And then the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation Disaster Help Desk for Businesses is another national resource that's available to you. This Agility Recovery has actually these resources in these different areas in how to, for preparedness. Most are printable PDFs, although some of them you need to download with your business email. And then the state of California, California Governor's Office of Emergency Services. This is the LISTOS was the agency that was started about with lots of resources, over 100 resources in more than 20 languages. And then the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development, GoBiz, has created a business portal with information for emergency preparedness. County of Shasta, these are all, so you could just print this off and you've got your first page right there in your emergency preparedness binder of resources. These are all of the emergency resources that I was able to dig down and pull up that are not only offer specific information on coordination with local emergency services, but also like our SBDC and the Women's Center, as well as Superior California Economic Development. These are often the places that we, of course, were out making available the continuing resources that were happening for COVID. And then as well as once your county may be declared a natural disaster area, like for the fires, then those were the, often we were giving out, we were trying to communicate all of those resources and grants that were coming that way. Here's County of Trinity, Office of Emergency Services, Disaster Council. The Weaverville Fire District has some safety information regarding, including evacuation information. And I think I made it, 202, how about that? Woo. So this is all that you need to know about how to contact us. We have, you could call Emily if you're interested in wanting to know more about our services. You can go to our website. You can americansbdc.org, find your SBDC near you if you're not located in Shasta or Trinity County. And then we have a pretty robust Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And on our YouTube channel, we have quite a few of our webinars up on all business topics. So you could just go there and see if there's any other areas that you might be interested in. So with that said, do I have any questions from the folks that had joined today? I really appreciate all of you attending today. And I know this is not always a subject that is fun and light like YouTube channel, but it is definitely something that all business owners should start, need to think about, have to think about, have been forced to think about. And I hope it was helpful. So do I have any questions? David, did you want to add anything?
I don't have anything to add. Cindy says that was great as always, which is true. You are always great. Thank you for doing this. I did put a link in the chat for the survey. Please fill that out. We have thick skin. We can take all of your darts and arrows and all of that nastiness. And if you think Lonnie did a great job, be sure and let her know. And also, if you have any ideas for webinars you'd like to see us do on some topics, please feel free to let us know. And that's the way to do it. You'll be getting the link also in the email that'll have the slides and the link to the video. And really, that's all I got. Am I forgetting anything?
No, I was going to just ask you, since I had mentioned it in the presentation, if the webinar we did on cybersecurity, is it up on the YouTube channel? Do you know?
Yeah, it is. And we're going to be doing another one in a few months. But yeah,
Okay.
if you, yeah, there's a webinar on cybersecurity in there as well, in the YouTube channel.
So I would encourage, if you haven't signed up for our email blast, our the newsletter or the email blast that Emily puts together, she always lists all the upcoming webinars, and majority of them are no cost to anybody that wants to attend. And that's great with cybersecurity. I'm going to watch it too, because I'm kind of nervous with cybersecurity and the threat that, you know, with everything that's happening in the world, we might need to know more about. So good to know. All right. Well, with that said, have a great rest of your day. And I appreciate everybody attending today. I'm going to start sharing. And I will see you again, if not in person, but on the webinar Zoom channel of the Shasta Cascade SBDC. And thank you, David, for hosting.
Thanks. Take care. We'll see you. Bye.